It's finally here. I have reached 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. I thought the day would never come, but today I'm gonna tell you how it did. So thank you a million. If it weren't for you, I would not be able to have this video.
Ruth Herring asks, I'd love to hear about your journey as an artist and YouTuber.
I will make a whole separate video for you where I tell you about my journey as an artist. So that's separate, but I will get into my journey on YouTube so far. So what I'll show you up here is the number of videos I have done, and I will put it on the screen exactly when I started. I think it was like June 2020, so shortly after all the lockdowns started for COVID. That's when I started this channel, and I have always had this intention, because what everyone tells me, all the YouTube experts, is if you want to succeed on this platform, you have to be consistent. You know, push out a video 1 time a week, 2 times a week, 3 times a week. It's supposed to be so structured, and I do believe I could have gotten to the 1,000 subscriber mark much faster if I had been able to follow the advice, but I just couldn't. YouTube takes a lot of work, like a lot. And my journey has been very much a story of how you can make it work anyway. I have had, even like I told you with the pregnancy, like a super long period, months and months, where I would not create or upload anything new. But somehow the YouTube gods smiled upon me, and I had a few videos, one in particular, up here, there, that went viral. Not viral by any official definition of the word, but viral by the standards of my channel. So if it's usually getting 100 views, all of a sudden something being picked up by the algorithm, showing up in search, and getting 17,000 views is huge, right? So that has been really helpful. I'm really grateful. That is kind of pulling everything on my channel up along with it. So I don't know if that really answered your question. Of course, I tried a lot of the recommendations, and I do use tools that I've linked below. I use Epidemic Sound for music to make sure that there's no copyright infringement. I use Morning Fame to do kind of research on keywords, on titles. And I have recently started using TubeBuddy, where you can do like A/B tests and compare which thumbnail and title people click on more. So I'm really happy to go into way more detail on those tools. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions about how I use them. Something else that I have been doing getting to these first 1,000 followers is, I guess, experimenting with different content types. So am I going to do studio vlogs? Am I going to do more tutorials? And I'm going to focus more on watercolor? Do I want to maybe try other art things? Am I going to show artist dates? Like, there's all these different ideas, and I have so many more. And it has been kind of nice to just try different ways and see what is going to resonate. And so far it's been pretty obvious. Like, the tutorials have done by far the best, but I am still in the way where I'm like finding where exactly this channel is going to go so that it is super helpful and entertaining to you. But my basic advice is, absolutely, if you can, you know, listen to podcasts, watch the YouTubers that talk about YouTube. There are tons of proven strategies, and you can educate yourself on how to grow your channel, how to make better thumbnails, better titles, how to, you know, look at your analytics, just the gear you want to use. There's 1,000,001 advice videos out there, and I'm sure that if you do that, it will help you a lot. But my story is kind of here to tell you, like, if you can't do that, if you can't be perfect, just do not give up. Because yes, it took me from, like, how long has it been? I really think it's like June 2020 to May 2022 to get to my first 1,000 subscribers. So is that some kind of like amazing hit story? No. No. I only did 35 videos in that amount of time, which is really not a lot by YouTube standards. But I'm finding my way. I'm getting better. Like the editing, I think, is getting better, more artistic, better timing with the music. It's a skill set, and I'm really glad that I have not given up, because it absolutely is one of my goals. My next big goal is 10,000 followers, and I would love to get to 100,000 one day. I would like to monetize this channel. I'm saying it outright because I do want to have multiple streams of income from some kind of art form, and I consider these videos very artistic. Creating these videos, shooting them, editing them, it's a really cool skill to learn. I love it, and I'm having so much fun with it, and that in itself is another way to be creative other than painting watercolor. I'll continue to stick with it. Yeah, I just encourage you, if it's a dream of yours, keep going. It took me about 6 months to get to my first 100 subscribers, and then so much longer to get the first 1,000, but it's possible, and I know I'm a really small fish in the YouTube sea, but the water's nice. Come in. That was so cringy. But really, time will pass anyway, right? That's that old wisdom. Time will pass anyway, so you might as well try to live out your dreams.
My Monoline Art asks, did you feel anxiety about starting your YouTube channel? If so, how did you overcome that?
Absolutely. I was pretty scared before I started a YouTube channel. There were tons of reasons. One of the main things in my head was, what if my work finds out? I was embarrassed. I didn't know what the reaction was going to be if my colleagues found out that they have these creative impulses, that I would like to monetize it, that I have these goals. And honestly, what I did to combat that is I shared it. I shared my channel, my first video on Facebook, where I was friends with colleagues. I didn't hide it from them. I even shared it on LinkedIn because I thought, this is part of the whole person that I am. And there's this quote from a book which is called Radical Candor. And it says, like, bring your whole self to work. So I thought, why am I trying to hide this? It's nothing to be ashamed of whatsoever. It's actually kind of a cool thing. And so I decided to address that fear in that way. Some of the other fears I had were my age. I started a channel in my mid-30s, and I thought that people might think I'm ridiculous. They might laugh at me. They might think, like, what is this woman having, like, some midlife crisis? Like, why would she do this? But I decided, you know what? I don't care, because I think it's never too late, and I think it can also be inspiring for other people. Either if you're younger, to just go for it. Don't wait as long as I did. And if you're my age or older, it is not too late to start something new. So I decided also that really wasn't a reason. There have been so many times in my life that I wanted to do something creative and I would hold back as that time passes, and then you haven't done it, and you could have just done it and be that much further. So that's why I decided, nope, that's also not a good reason to hold back. And then the last thing I was a little scared of was, I guess, online trolls. Just that potential that someone could say something. Luckily, I haven't had a lot of that on this channel. I'm sure as it grows, that will become more prevalent. But I think there's so much love and such a beautiful community, where people either are artists themselves or they love following other artists. And they're interested in the art and the growth, and all of that so much outweighs any negative opinion that there might be. And not everyone's going to love my channel, love me, love my art, and that's another thing I can live with. It's just that maybe the internet makes it a little more obvious to you. And the very last thing that was originally something that held me back as a fear was, like, it wasn't perfect. I didn't have the best audio. I didn't have the perfect setup. I still don't. Maybe my art wasn't good enough. There were all these reasons. And it was like, well, maybe someone wants to follow along on the journey. Maybe it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect when you start. And that has been true for my channel. So I'm really glad I started when I did.
Lena Edelweiss asks, how is your typical day as an artist?
So this one is a little tricky to answer. because it really depends on the day. And that might sound like an excuse, but the scenario is that I used to work full time, and so my art focus was in the evenings a few days a week, a lot of times the full days on the weekend. So, you know, a day in your life is going to be very, very different as far as it comes to art in that setup. So very often I would work all day, and if I had like a big project or some kind of deadline, I would do art at night, but often I would do video editing or something else that was still creative, but you know, didn't require me to sit down and actually create art, because often I was just I felt burnt out. After a long day of work, I didn't feel super creative. And then on the weekends, I would do the opposite. I would sit down for maybe like literally 8 hours, you know, maybe forget to eat, which rarely happens with me. But in that flow state, I could forget it, and I could go all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and create artwork sitting at the desk doing watercolor. My days would be super different depending on what day of the week it was, and I'd also go through peaks and valleys where I would do a ton of artwork one weekend, like I said, like all of Saturday and all of Sunday, and then I'd be kind of exhausted from it and exhausted from not having a truly fully relaxing weekend. But then the next weekend I would do pretty much no artwork, and so it would just go in these 2-week cycles. Now it's completely different again. I guess we'll skip over almost the last year because I was pregnant, as you know if you've watched some of my studio vlogs, and I was feeling pretty sick through the whole process. It was not a super easy flow situation for me at all, and so I didn't do any art almost for a year, really. And then those first few months, it was the same situation after our baby was born, which is such an incredible blessing. But now I am kind of still on maternity leave, haven't gone back to work, and I'm figuring out what my next step is going to be. And so it means that, well, I'm not free because I'm not working, because I have a child that I'm caring for, and so obviously that is going to dictate the majority of my timeline every day. But in the nooks and crannies, I have help. We moved closer to family, so it's been incredibly just a supportive environment for me to be able to have that relationship, have that time to care for my child, but also have support so that, you know, for 2 hours here, 2 hours there, I can sit down and I can paint. It's been very different, I will tell you that. Those 8-hour chunks are definitely history. They have not been happening, so yeah, maybe I'll get up to 2 hours. Often I'll get like a 20-minute chunk, and so I try to change the way I work. And I do feel I've actually been super productive on the painting front, on the social media front. So I've often heard people say that, like, when you become a parent, you have to get that much more efficient. And I think if you're not in the situation, well, okay, sure, whatever. But yep, that's been true for me. So that has been really great, actually. And one of the things that has helped me now that I have these little chunks, and I think actually it would also have helped before when I was working full time, is to have everything set up. So if I have my watercolors all laid out, I have my sketch done, like everything's kind of batched and ready, then I can actually do something in 20 minutes. Whereas if my station isn't set up and I'm trying to find, you know, I still have to charge my phone, and I gotta find my iPad, and then I gotta figure out what to sketch. I need the glass of water for my paints. The 20 minutes are over. And so that is something that has been a big learning and a big change for me since my life situation has changed so much. And it is allowing me to be incredibly creative and productive. That is a really long-winded and threefold answer as to how my day goes as an artist. Summary: I like to try to be prepared, have my workstations prepared, and I try to batch things. Like, this does not happen that often anymore. This being that I am done up, I have my makeup done, I'm dressed. So that is just honestly not an everyday occurrence anymore. And so I try to batch things. Like, if I'm going to make, I've really gotten into TikTok videos recently, which will be a different video for you soon. But anything that I know is going to be on camera where I want to feel good, I'll try to do that. Okay, so it's the same kind of setup, just like I have my watercolors ready. At any time, if I want to be painting, I know that if I have made myself up in a way that I feel like I want to be on camera, then try to knock out a few different things. Batch your video intros, batch little TikTok things, have ideas ready. It's a very different way that I'm working now, and it's actually really working and making me incredibly happy.